Welcome to the December 14th, 2023 Planning Board public hearing. It is the last hearing of the year, and we have a full house. So I just want to briefly tell you that there are some safety requirements. In the event of an emergency, the two doors of this room lead out, go down the stairs and out the front door. That's it. And because we do have a crowd, I'm just going to ask that you, if someone has spoken and said what you want to say, try when you speak to keep it briefer. I don't know how many people will be speaking tonight, but we have quite a few online as well. Okay, thank you. So call to order. Secretary?
Madam Chair,
Present.
Vice Chair Finnerty,
Present.
the Secretary is here. Board Member Catalinato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu.
Present.
Board Member Neely.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Please join us for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have notice, council? Proper notice?
We do now.
Okay.
Very good. Please take notice that in accordance with Local Law 14 of 2022, a public hearing will be held by the Southampton Town Planning Board on Thursday, December 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Town Hall, 116 Hampton Road, Southampton, and via video conferencing to consider the pre-submission application entitled Bud Hampton. The application is to convert an existing 1,000 square foot ice cream retail store, Carvel, into a non-medical cannabis dispensary and associated parking on a 30,000 square foot parcel situated in the Highway Business Zone located at 2033 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton, tax map number 984-1-14.
That's it.
Do we read the,
No.
no, okay. That's it, that's the notice.
Okay, thank you. So, we'd just like to share with you some information from New York State so that you can understand what the town, municipality can do and cannot do. So, these laws emanate from the New York State cannabis law. This town board opted in. Once you opt in, right now, you cannot opt out. Maybe that will be changed somewhere down the line. But what it does is it overrides the municipality. We don't have municipal authority, essentially. We've been preempted. We have special exception standards, but they're very limited. So I particularly wanted you to understand that, to know that we're all looking at this together. This is the first application, and so just keep that in mind, when you advocate for whatever you're advocating. But I just think it's important to be educated about this, just as we have been educated about it. And we are very limited in what we could do because we are ruled by New York State. So, given that, I'll call the applicant's representative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Carl Benincasa, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, for the applicant. What I'm passing amongst the board members now is a aerial photograph that shows the 500-foot radius from the subject site. As you know, that will become relevant as we discuss certain special exception standards. First, to reiterate what the chair said, neither I nor as an officer of the court nor any of you as appointed members of this board have the authority, latitude, or charter to question the decisions of the legislatures, both state and local. This substance, whether or not controversial, it can be legally sold in the town of Southampton. And what we are before you today is to discuss not only the specific dimensional requirements for this site plan and conditions that you do have authority to review, but also special exception standards that were written for you by the town board. Your authority is limited, as you know, and council will tell you, to consideration of this in the context of those special exception standards. So with that, I will continue with the process. 2033 Montauk Highway is located on Montauk Highway, just south of the Bridgehampton Commons Shopping Center. It's a 30,000 square foot lot boasting a approximately 1,000 square foot, one-story commercial building currently occupied by a Carvel and ice cream store. The site plan proposes using that same exact building in its current location and changing the use thereof to a non-medical cannabis dispensary. A non-medical cannabis dispensary site must be able to accommodate these parking requirements and for retail use as determined by the planning board and as set forth in the town code. A retail use parking standard says that there shall be one spot for every 180 square feet of structure. As there are 1,000 square feet for this building, that means that there are 6 required spaces. The application before you provides 20 spaces with 2 ADA compliant spaces. So more than meets that standard. Turning now to the special exception standards. A non-medical cannabis dispensary, and I'll just read through the standard and how we meet that standard, should not be permitted on the same road within 500 feet of school grounds or a community facility. Again, I presented you that 500-foot radius. As you can see, the immediately adjoining parcels to the east are vacant. There is only one developed property within 500 feet on the south side of Montauk Highway. There is currently a certificate of occupancy for mattress firm Bridgehampton Commons is to the north. The immediate adjoining parcels to the west are vacant with one developed property within 500 feet on the south side of Montauk Highway with a valid certificate of occupancy for a single-family home. To the north is the Bridgehampton Commons and a restaurant. So again, within 500 feet, there is no school grounds or community facility. Nor is there a location devoted solely to religious worship. Non-medical cannabis dispensary shall not be permitted on the same road and within 200 feet of a building occupied as a house of worship. I'm sorry. That's a 200-foot standard, and there are none within 200 feet. A non-medical cannabis dispensary shall not be located within a 1,000-foot radius of another dispensary. This is the first of its kind in the town, so that is not a concern. The parcel shall be of sufficient size and shape to provide required buffer and transitional yards intended to screen the development from adjacent parcels. Again, it's surrounded exclusively by HB parcels, so that transition is not relevant here. As it is located within similarly zoned, a sea of similarly zoned parcels. The next talk about the appearance of the building. Again, the building is existing, so that appearance speaks for itself. A non-medical cannabis dispensary site must be able to accommodate the parking requirements for retail use, as I mentioned, it does. There are outdoor speakers as well as outdoor music in our public address system shall be prohibited. As you go through this process, certainly you can make that a condition of site plan. There is no drive-through being proposed, which is another standard. The rest talk about signage, the requirement for all licenses to operate be imposed, security systems, hours of operation, not before 10 a.m., not after 9 p.m., and fire marshal requirements as needed. Of course, those won't be a problem. So your authority is limited to the consideration of those specific standards, as you're aware. We do meet them, as noted by my presentation. So there really is very little to discuss at this juncture. These standards were promulgated by the town board and limit your authority in that respect. I am happy to answer any questions. If not, I'll turn it over to members of the public.
Could you briefly describe some of the improvements, landscaping, that you're proposing for the site?
This is not proposed landscaping, this is existing.
Oh, existing, okay.
As we get through the process, we'll certainly be very open-minded to any proposed
And are
improvements.
there any proposed changes to the structure? It's an
None to
iconic-
the structure.
Okay.
I believe the building, when we checked it, was something like 68 years old, so it falls within the preservation guidelines. You probably have to submit.
If we have to go to landmarks, we'll
Landmarks,
certainly
yeah.
do that.
So, I don't, does the rest of the board have any questions? Because we have lots of people who want to
Certainly.
talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Peter Fedor? Fader.
Good evening. I'm Peter Fader. I'm treasurer of the Bridgehampton Civic Association, and I'm here today to voice my strong opposition to Butthampton. This proposal should never have seen the light of day if the town board, and specifically outgoing Supervisor Jay Schneiderman, had not acted in such a feckless manner. Instead of taking his cue from the incorporated villages who voted against having pot shops in town, the town board, led by Supervisor Schneiderman, voted to allow pot shops in unincorporated villages because if the Shinnecock, because in his words, if the Shinnecocks are going to be involved, I want a piece of that action. Unincorporated hamlets like Bridgehampton have no control over their land use, as you well know. We are dependent on the town of Southampton to look out for our interests, but time and again, the town board, along with appointed bodies such as the planning board and the ZBA, have continued to act in concert to continually thwart the will of the people and thus eroding the special character and uniqueness of Bridgehampton. I strongly urge this board not to grant this special exemption, and I would have, and what you told me about not being able to opt out of the system makes what Jay Schneiderman did last year even more reprehensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Burmeister?
Well, I can see from what planning board, you've told us that we don't, much of what I had to say here is more of a, probably doesn't have any teeth in it because we're so restricted in what we can do, but I'm going to read it anyway. This is the most senseless and absurd application I've ever seen come before the Southampton Town Board. The town has spent over $1 million renovating the Nathaniel Rogers House, restoring Militia Green, and budgeting to repair the community house. It has spent countless hours preparing the town code and meeting the New York State legal requirements for the designation of the first historic district in the town of Southampton. Now you have before you an application which makes a weed shop the star feature at the western entrance to our hamlet. The irony is that this popular and valued ice cream store, established in the 1960s, is approaching the age when it could be eligible for an historic designation. I guess that I didn't realize how close we were. 68 years, I couldn't find the exact date. And the worst insult is Carvel's new name, Bud Hampton, is a marijuana dispensary, the first impression we want visitors to have of our hamlet. The Southampton villages rejected the idea. Now I realize much of this is just an argument against it without any, I guess, teeth that you say we're limited, so limited in what we can object to. But that's how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Pam Harwood?
Madam President?
Chair.
Madam
Chair.
Chair and members of the board. I'm going to go as quickly as I can with this. A little history of the site, beginning where I came into being a citizen crusader, I don't know. But when I first came in about 9 years ago, seems like yesterday, a citizen group called Save Bridgehampton Main Street fought to keep the chain store CVS off Main Street. Connors offered to give CVS a home if they would work with the town to build a massive mixed-use planned development district. The MUPDD, as it was then called, they've since been done away with, was withdrawn after community opposition and other factors. Next, the Connors applied for a 27,000 square foot Equinox where 15,000 square feet was allowed. That was withdrawn in 2021 following community opposition based on traffic and environmental studies. On March 1st, 2021, the Bridgehampton CAC sent a resolution asking town officials to try to negotiate a purchase of the property to keep it as open space using CPF funds. After delays in receiving any feedback, the CAC foiled the information and info on whether or not such talks were happening. The town invoked a New York State FOIL exemption on the ground that relaying status to the CAC would endanger real estate negotiations. We never heard back a single thing from the town board. Really disgraceful. Now, 2 years later, no CPF purchase was made. We don't know if there were any attempts ever at negotiation. And now Connor wants Bud Hampton to replace Carvel, which requires a special exemption in highway business zoning. We believe that New York State rules for adult cannabis dispensaries allow licenses to be given only to justice-involved applicants who would own at least 51% of the business, defined as persons or a family member of a person who was arrested for marijuana-related activities prior to March 2021. We would like to know if the applicant for Bud Hampton qualifies for a license. On the application for this that you're putting around tonight, I don't see any other name on the application other than members of the Connor family. So does someone in the Connor family on this application qualify for a license? That's what we need to know, and no one's saying it yet. This comes at a time when the town board has just voted to create the Main Street Historic District in Bridgehampton, the first of its kind in any unincorporated hamlet in Southampton town, beginning at Snake Hollow Road, only a few feet away from the Connor property. Should Bud Hampton be the gateway to the new Bridgehampton Main Street Historic District? All the incorporated villages in Southampton Town voted not to permit pot shops, but Southampton Town Board voted to allow these in an unincorporated hamlets, and Bridgehampton residents have no representation on the town board. And will unlucky Bridgehampton be the first location of a pot shop in Southampton? After the Shinnecock Nation announced their intention to sell marijuana, Jay Schneiderman said the town should also allow pot shops so we can benefit from the tax income. If town officials want the Shinnecock Nation to be on a better financial footing, why compete with them for this revenue? But the Bridgehampton School will not benefit either. All school tax income from the Commons and Connor property will go to Southampton Town School District because of some long-ago arrangement. And because this pot shop would be located on Montauk Highway, customers would get into their cars, smoke their purchases, drive around our local roads while impaired and distracted. We understand, and there is no test that the police can use to prove such impairment. That's what we were told on an earlier hearing when this was first put into place. Connor has also applied to build 6 15,000 square foot commercial buildings on this otherwise undeveloped open space. If allowed, Bud Hampton would be the gateway to this massive development plan, as well as being the gateway to the Bridgehampton Historic District. We oppose it, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam.
Carrie Millard?
I guess I'm sort of more of an historical figure. I used to come here for the CAC years ago. Anyway, I'm back again. I am definitely opposed, although I guess I don't have much of a legal footing to be against Bud Hampton. I grew up in Sagaponack from the 1940s on. I then graduated to Bridgehampton. And Carvel was always a big deal in my life. You know, would you get the Spreckles or not the Spreckles? So I feel very fondly about Carvel. And for me, it's just hideous to think that the Carvel that I took my 3 sons to as they grew up will not be there anymore, and that Bud Hampton will be there instead. I am definitely opposed to it. Whatever that is going to help me do at this point, I don't know. But I just feel it's so against the character of our village that we love, that we've established this historic district in, and that Bud Hampton just doesn't fit. So I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. I have another Pamela Harwood here. How can that be? 371 would,
I don't get to speak twice.
do you want to speak? I mean, we have Mr. Harwood, no? No. Peter Zamiska? Please.
I'm here to protest and hopefully have you reject this application. When I found out about it, I thought it was a freaking joke that something like this could happen in this beautiful little hamlet that we call home permanently. I looked up quickly a few studies about pot dispensaries, marijuana stores. There's tons of data, and it can go either way. But one thing stood out to me, that in a community when a pot store shows up and they do the advertising and so forth for marijuana, it really influences young people in a strange and very sad way. The study was done, I think it was by the Rand Corporation, and you can find a lot of studies. But the effect on 18 to 21-year-olds when they lived in the proximity of a marijuana dispensary was, well, I guess that's okay. That's not so bad then. And we're much more interested in maybe pursuing it. Now, you cannot buy marijuana legally in New York State, under the age of 21. The study was done on 18-year-olds to 21-year-olds. But what's to stop a 21-year-old from going in and buying pot for his little brother or little sister, because he knows he's just years away from being able to buy the pot? Pardon?
If you could just keep your comments here, 'cause-
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm thinking there's probably other evidence. I even saw an article, again, I can't vouch for its veracity, that a pot dispensary reduces retail value and also home values. And I'm just throwing those out. I'm sure we could counter it with other studies, but I just ask this: what is the good that this store could possibly bring our community? What is the good? I know the Connors can probably make a fortune in the summer and get everybody high on pot and, drunk on alcohol and make a lot of money. But that puts our community at risk. I mean, I can see the headline now. Iconic Bridgehampton Carvel goes to pot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I won't let that happen.
Thank you. Greg Connor?
I'm going to reserve the right to speak later.
Thomas Gouch?
Yeah, sorry.
Thomas Gouch?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a resident of Bridgehampton, I'm opposed to the special exemption for 2033 Montauk Avenue to replace the existing Carmel with a non-medical cannabis dispensary. I believe the proposal for the marijuana emporium is ill-conceived, inappropriate, and unnecessary. Ill-conceived, as I understand it, the proposal would replace the 1,000 square foot Carvel with, in addition to that building, 30,000 square feet of roadside facility and parking. It would be entirely vehicular dependent in an area already critically congested with traffic from Montauk Highway, the Commons, and the associated businesses. It is unnecessary and inappropriate because Bridgehampton already has two retail areas: the downtown along Montauk Highway and the Commons. This Carvel site neither connects to nor enhances either. Cannabis is readily available for those who wish it within the area from the Shinnecock Nation stores. I believe there's no community interest in having a dispensary in the highway entrance to Bridgehampton. There's no community benefit to Bridgehampton. The fees will go to the Southampton School District, not to Bridgehampton. And Bridgehampton, as an unincorporated village, has no say in the management of its affairs in this regard. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Tom Ayers, the third.
Hello. I'm born and raised Southampton Hospital. My parents were both teachers. My dad was the music teacher at the middle school over here, retired about 17 years ago. My mom was an elementary school teacher in Sag Harbor. My first job out here was at North Sea Farms. Went to agricultural school. I currently hold a New York State cultivation license in watermill. This is my third season growing. I'm growing like our great-great-grandparents grew, no chemicals. I don't spray anything. The reason why I got into pot was health and some of the benefits. One of our testing from New York State came out, and his father got stage 4 prostate cancer and metastasized to his spine. And he quit his job and started giving him a full spectrum medicine that's from pot. And within 8 months, he was totally cancer free. And
Can
this
you-
comes
can you
from
address
RSO.
us, Jeff?
Oh, I'm sorry. And totally cancer free. And there's studies coming out of Canada, which they've had there's a lot of benefits to this product, not just recreational. And, you know, with alcohol, you know, there's so many deaths related to that. And you can go to a bar and leave a bar. And you know, there's basically nobody's OD'd on pot. It's been villainized, and it's just a plant like a tomato. And, you know, there's no heavy equipment involved in all this stuff. And the other thing is regulation. I'm all for the Shinnecocks, and we want to sell to the Shinnecocks, but New York State won't allow us to because of the tax situation. But I would love to sell to them, but it's an unregulated product. It's not tested. New York State has set up a whole series of vigorous testing that we have to pass to make sure that this product is safe for consumption. And I would love to sell to them, but New York's not letting us. So I've put everything into this farm over there in Watermill, and I'd like to be able to sell it. And you know, and it's already being sold. It's been being sold in Southampton forever. Why shouldn't the town be able to collect on some of that? You know, because it's gonna help. I went to Colorado after it got legalized, and it's the cleanest city I've ever seen because they're using money from the pot to benefit. You know, we just have to. It needs to be regulated. We all need to work together with it so that it's not just sold on the street. You know, most people that smoke pot go home and smoke pot and stay home. They're not driving around, going around. It doesn't work that way. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Christian Sanchos.
Hello, how are you? So, just a little background on myself. I was born in Southampton, raised in Southampton. My parents are immigrants who have worked in Sagaponack, Sag Harbor, all the townships, you can name them. And being, you know, part of the youth, I would like to see, you know, the town of Southampton be progressive as it is, keep moving forward as the other states do. And, you know, it would be beneficial, I believe, you know, if we go ahead and grant him, you know, the access to, you know, why not? It's being regulated. We should have it regulated instead of, you know, having someone, you know, buy it off the streets for God knows what, you know, and the statistics to, you know, pretty much say you can move statistics any way you want to, you know, either villainize it or, make it good. But as you can tell, as there's been multiple studies, as the gentleman before me said, there's lots of benefits to it, and these are real studies. So I just want to say, let's hopefully you guys can move forward at this, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I have Beth Samiski, and I have, and Peter. So do you want to speak, Beth? Yeah.
My name is Beth Zamiska, and I have to say I'm not in favor. You have to ask why. It just doesn't fit into our community. Yes, I understand it has health benefits, but it's just not right for our town. That's it.
Thank you. Joanna Gouge? No, I had you, the Joanna, and someone signed. I think we'll go to the online people. Sure, yeah, come on, and give us your name.
My name's Alphonse Emelo. I'm a retired physician that moved here about 7 years ago. And by the way, that person that got well with marijuana, I wish I had some of that. I've never seen that in my practice. We still don't know what good it does. We have lots of studies that show marijuana are good, but not any clinically valid studies. I hope it turns out. There's a lot, there's certainly some pros in having marijuana, a dispensary, but not where it's located. I agree, having a marijuana shop isn't all bad because people, it'll demonize some of the people. That's nice. It'll give them an outlet to buy drugs or marijuana in this case, without being put to jail. Those are good points, and we should promote that. But I think the location is wrong. We shouldn't promote it there. You said 500 feet from school. You realize that you're less than a 10-minute walk from school? Less than 10 minutes kids could walk to this dispensary. And don't tell me because they're 16 years old, they're not going to be able to give you a false document and buy these things. This is what happens with alcohol, and this is what happens in the real world. Having this dispensary where it's presently located is a fabulous advertisement for Bridgehampton. Come to Bridgehampton, the pothouse of not Oil City, that's where it used to be. The pothouse of the Hamptons. Is this what you want? I mean, that's what you ask yourself. You have the power to obviously grant some kind of exception. After hearing what I presume is a lawyer, correct? It didn't sound like there was any exceptions for you to vote on. Do you have an option to vote yes or no?
No.
No.
So what are we talking here for?
We'd like to know
State.
what you feel where the landscaping should go, what lighting you'd like to see there, those types of things, the curbing, the access, do you see the access
I'd
there?
like to see a wall. I'd like to see a wall there that blocks that off. from the
That's the
rest of-
substance of our review, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is it really?
It is.
Mayor
Then there's no
State.
point me
It's
talking
it's
to
said
you.
multiple times.
I don't want to waste your time or mine.
Right to
Thanks.
governor,
Special exemption. It has to meet special standards.
special exception
What
standard.
was the special exemption?
Has to be a certain
Lighting?
distance from a school, a house of worship, residences. They've listed them all. We'll have council come up and list them again. If they
So
meet
if I
those
want to put a
standards,
pawn shop
they
up
get
there,
the-
that's okay too?
If it's
Excuse me?
zoned for it, but
If I want, pardon me?
it's not zoned for it. It has to be zoned for it.
Zone for what? This is zone for pot?
It's allowed to have. this
Oh,
is
and the
where-
pawn shop is not? Is that what you're
Correct.
telling me?
Correct.
That's good.
Hamlet business.
Forgive me,
Okay,
I'm
does
sorry.
anyone else from here want to speak before we go to Zoom? Yeah, please, come on up. No, come on up, you have to come to the podium. Yeah? And give us your name, please.
Joanne Gouge. If I'm not mistaken, from what I've read about the referendum, we can actually do another referendum and opt out if I'm not, the state does allow that.
Well, right now, if you opt in, you can't opt
You can,
out.
yes, you
From
can
what we
redo
know.
it.
Okay, Counsel?
You can opt out.
No, that's another town.
What historical designation exists right now?
You have to go to the podium for
Can you-
recording.
We can hear you, but the microphone has to pick up your comments.
Doug McDale, thank you for giving me this time. Resident here for 20 years now. I live on Montauk Highway, 100 yards from the school. All right, I'm just going to briefly, just so some of this that was addressed regarding the proximity to the school. You have Hay Grounds, which is down the street, right, off of Snake Hollow. All right, it's maybe more than 1,000 feet, but not much more. You have Bridgehampton High School, which is 1.3 miles away. All right, you have Ross School down off of before Scuttle Hole coming up. So you have a lot of young people in this area. Right? And my daughter is 18 years old, just graduated high school, in college this year for the first time. Live in the city quite a bit, spend a lot of time there. We understand exactly what goes on with the availability of legalized pot. I'm not against it. I don't smoke, never have. New York granted it. There was a state choice. It was a money-making choice. All right, that's what it's all about. It's been a disaster, the rollout, whether anyone wants to agree or not. It's been horrible for the rollout. But the fact of the matter is, if we have an ability somehow, whether it be, you mentioned the historical designation, all right, changing the certain things within the guidelines before it's too late, if that can be done, why doesn't these attempts get made? Bridgehampton is the stepchild of the rest of the Hamptons. When I moved out here and I found out what happened with the Bridgehampton Commons, with deals that were made years ago, right, as to all that revenue, all of it, all right, goes to the town of Southampton. Bridgehampton gets virtually nothing. All right, we have an opportunity here now to try to find a way to give us a little bit of respect back, all right, from what's going on. All right, and as I said, I'm not morally against it, but they said the location that was granted here, what's supposed to be granted, as we talked, the gateway to the town, is a horrible presentation for not only the new people coming in, but for existing patrons that have been here for many, many years. And something that should be looked at a little bit more deeply to try to find a way to stop this. And what's going to happen is this is going to be tied up, I got to believe, legalese, for time to come, because there's going to be a lot of other people who are going to step forward, have a lot deeper pockets than we do, that will try to find a way to stop this. And listen, the Connors, whatever you want to, the name is pronounced correctly, they've had their presence here for many years. They've tried to get things through, and they're going to try again and continue to try. And this is the one time that the town has, or the hamlet has an opportunity to try to stop them, from doing any more damage to this town.
But I've made the statement to begin with about state regs where we're preempted. Write to Governor Hochul. And see if she would.
Honestly, we can write to anybody we want at this point in time.
But I'm just telling you in terms of what we can do.
Is there anything
we're listening to you, we're absorbing it and responding.
You mentioned the historical designation.
The building is old. It falls
Okay.
within that requirement.
Okay, what requirements?
They just have to go through the review board.
The review board?
Yeah.
Okay, now the review board can basically put any conditions they want. All right, I live in a historic house. Well, it should be a historic house. We basically preserved it. So I understand what the requirements can be. And they can be onerous, beyond onerous. They can go above and beyond anything anybody wants to deal with. All right, who has the power, all right, to, or who can we speak to directly in that regard to try to find out exactly what the requirements are and what the requirements can be altered, which they're going to try to. They're going to try to make it as easy as possible.
You can perhaps speak to the town board. I just wanted to give you a piece of information that I learned.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Bridgehampton. The school district ends at Snake Hollow Road. The common starts on the other side of it. So that's what happens in terms of the school district boundaries. And that's why the tax revenue doesn't go to Bridgehampton, to the Bridgehampton School District.
But wasn't that a deal that was made many years ago?
That I can't tell you. I'm just telling you.
The history, from what I've been able to gather, the history basically states that the deal was made years before we were out here, that gave that revenue to the town, all right, and obviously took Bridgehampton out of the entire thing.
Okay, so let's go on with this.
Somebody else wanted to
Anybody else from here want to speak before we go to Zoom?
Mr. Connor, I think, wanted.
Did you want to speak? Please, yes.
Just to answer your question, sir, the Design Landmarks Board will review the design of the building, not the use, so they're gonna be focusing on improvements, exterior improvements. I don't think there are any proposed. I think it's gonna stay in the same shape that it currently is.
Right. And the state law says 500 feet.
Yeah.
1,000 feet. Those are determined by New York State.
And we
And we
can't
cannot
make-
preempt, we cannot.
We can't make them greater.
Yeah, just so you know, that's what we're dealing with here. We're as frustrated as you.
Doesn't it stay at least 500 feet? Sir, we can't take your testimony today, you have to come back up to the podium, but just so that we're clear, this board's jurisdiction is derived from whatever the town code and New York State laws say. The town code is done by the legislative body of the town board. Once they put local laws on the books with standards, with whatever they say, this board's review is confined to what is allowed. This is not a board of relief. They have to follow whatever those guidelines are. They may have discretion in terms of other things or environmental issues or things like that, but they are confined and do not have a lot of, at all, leeway when it comes to that.
Thank you, counsel. Please.
I'll be brief. My name is Jessica Chervin. I live in Bridgehampton. I'm a mother of an almost 4-year-old boy. In light of what you've just shared, I'm concerned that my saying what I'm about to say is an exercise in futility, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm absolutely horrified that this has been proposed. I have been coming to Bridgehampton for my entire life, enjoying the Carvel. This is not so much about ice cream and nostalgia as it is the way you enter our town. It is so unbelievably unbecoming to come in to a huge pot shop. I don't understand why it has to go there. I don't want it anywhere near my son. I don't want it on roads that we drive on. And it really is actually quite puzzling to me that after the town board has done so much work with the Landmarks and Historic Board and the Bridgehampton Civic Association to make a beautiful historic district, that now we're going to come in and see a cannabis leaf? I don't know if that's actually what's planned. But it's just, it absolutely enrages me so much so that I'm having a hard time finding words. And so again, probably an exercise in futility, but I came here because I wanted to say that as a mother and as somebody who loves my town and who's deeply distressed by this.
Thank you.
So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Counsel, was there any language in the state law regarding historical districts?
I don't believe there is.
This is not enough. This is, yeah.
May I ask a question?
This is outside.
If one of the local schools had an annex in the Bridgehampton Commons, right, there's buildings there.
500 feet.
On the same side of the road is way.
Has to be the same,
road.
on the same road. Wasn't the Bridgehampton Commons considered Montauk Highway?
Yeah. Has to be 500 feet.
So,
I don't know if an annex would qualify, that would be something we'd have to speak to.
an annex that kids were taught in or were given
No, I
classroom.
understand what you're saying, I just don't know if under the law it would qualify, but I understand your point.
Who
Yeah.
could we speak to on that point to see whether it would qualify? Because they say Haygrounds, or say the Bridgehampton High School, or say some donor came forward and say, I'm donating this part of this building. We're gonna basically make it the annex of the Bridgehampton High School for art class. All right, and now it's basically that unit is within the territorial rights of that 500 feet or 1,000 feet, where technically speaking, you cannot have a dispensary.
Well, you've raised the point here,
Mhm.
so, I mean, what we normally do is not, we don't usually have a back and forth like this
Okay.
at these meetings. But you've raised the point, and so once we close the hearing, the board will take all this into consideration, and obviously we will look up and address that point and look into.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just want to go to the podium for one second. I keep hearing here what your limited jurisdiction is because everything's dictated by New York State, which I understand to be true and I understand that. But I raised something before and you haven't answered it. New York State also has very strict guidelines about who it will give licenses for adult cannabis dispensaries. And nowhere here tonight have we discussed that. On this application that I have that's on the agenda, the only family names that are on the application for this adult cannabis dispensary are the people in the Connor family. Are they qualified under New York State law to have licenses for a cannabis dispensary? You have to be justice involved, which means in the past, you or a member of your family have to have been arrested for marijuana-related violations prior to March 2021. Is anyone on this application qualified for a license to own this dispensary? And I believe they have to own 51% of the business.
Pam, that's
Let's
the
discuss this
question of
tonight.
The licensed dispenser, we don't give the licenses out. That's not our jurisdiction.
Well, how can you even
They're allowed to make applications.
How can you entertain this discussion tonight without prior knowing whether or not somebody is qualified to have a license to run a business that you're approving
Because they're the
tonight?
landlord, and whoever they lease this facility to will have to undergo that review.
So, and just to that point, we're also in a pre-submission conference. We don't have a formal application yet. The special exception standards, when we get to that point, talks about what the requirements are and what has to be produced. And so we're going to address all these issues. We're going to look at them. But we are in a pre-submission conference, so nobody has to produce a license or any demonstration of that at this point. The whole purpose of this is to identify site plan issues and special exceptions.
They may just be the landlord.
They could be the landlord, yeah. Please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Andrew Medeo, and I am a resident of Bridgehampton. And my question is this is just about, tonight's meeting is just about approving the site plan?
We're not approving
we're
anything.
nowhere near that.
Okay, so
Way
I
far
don't know
Right.
what the point of this meeting is and what the process is. And my question is, what rights do we have as citizens to try and prevent this or promote this? I'm not against having a pot dispensary. And again, I see that there can be positive. I am against the location of that. I'd rather see it in the Commons than standing on its own on Montauk Highway as the gateway to our town, personally. I think I wouldn't want to see a liquor store in that spot either. It's just not the correct thing. And my question is, what can we do as citizens, or is this a done deal?
The idea here is that it's a pre-submission conference to get feedback from the community on how you feel about this application. There are many steps beyond that where things get formalized. This is just the first.
I mean, then would it help if we got a list of a bazillion names that live in the town?
What you should do, right now, this is allowed in highway business. So anything in highway business that meets the standards in the code is what this board is tasked with looking at. Part of that process in any site plan is a pre-submission conference. That's what we're having right now to get feedback so that this board ostensibly can see what the issues with the site plan will be. That's how it works normally on a non-controversial topic. In this case, I appreciate the fact that you all feel a certain way about it. The legislative body would be the body you should really be speaking with, whether it be at the town level, the state level, wherever, because this board is not a legislative board.
Explain to us what a legislative board is.
They
Like,
make
I have
the
to work
law.
my way backwards.
Okay, they make the law. So we have a town code, and the town board members make the town code, and in doing so, they follow what the state does in New York State law, and then, and it trickles
So
down.
we need to start with the town board to change this before December 31st?
That would be your advocacy level, your first advocacy level, or the state level, but I will tell you, and you probably should go back and watch the work sessions and town board meetings that they had when they did this legislation. They were painstakingly gone through so that whatever's on the books here, once they opted in, was in compliance with the state law, because they started out trying to make things further away from schools and further away from houses of worship.
The
and that
problem
has to
with
be taken
this is that the town of Southampton is opting in and making decisions about unincorporated village, they're basically saying, not in my town. Okay, so no, it can't be in the village of Southampton. But hey, let's put it on the Montauk Highway over here.
The town of Southampton isn't ruling over the village of Southampton either. They have their own jurisdiction. We only, the town of Southampton and the town board as a legislative body for the town only does laws that affect people outside unincorporated villages, right? So that's.
But where is our protection as citizens
Were you
for
all
them?
at the hearings when they did the hearings on opting in,
and we
opting
had
out?
no say. The town board opted in,
Opted in.
despite opposition.
Without any public input whatsoever.
Well, they had hearings, they had hearings and a referendum. So what
So
public
once
input-
you rule today,
There's no rule today. There's no one's ruling today.
okay, so once you take in all this information and make a recommendation today,
One person at a time, and it's recorded, so please, we understand your passion, believe me.
once you take your information, and I guess you make a recommendation, I'm not sure where you go from here, but it sounds like this is a done deal because everybody's hands are tied. What are our rights as citizens to help either promote or stop this?
I think council just gave you some advice on that. You could write to your town board. And you
Does
could
this have
also
to be
write-
done by December 31st, or how long is this gonna?
No, that's an old date. I don't know where you're getting that date from.
Right.
That was the date when this was first put to the board like 2 years ago. That's an old
Right.
date. That's not time,
think
that passed of 2 years ago.
And that's when the town board could opt.
Right,
Just,
I
just to
mean-
give you an example, so like I live in an unincorporated hamlet, right? So if this application came to us in my town, I would be you, only I'd be sitting here. And I'd be restricted to the confines of the same laws and regulations that I am today. So if it fit legally within my own town, I'd have to vote in the affirmative for it. I'd have some say of what it looks like, right? We try to, limit signage, limit the impact of lighting, all the things we normally do on the planning board. But what we don't have the right to do is to change the use. And I think that's what the frustration in the room right now. Everybody's upset about the use. I totally understand that. That's not us, unfortunately.
What happens if an adult shop decided to go?
That's
It's different
regulated,
because
yeah.
it's not, and listen, I understand your passion about this, and I understand the angst. But, this is the zoning that's in place. It's, this particular zoning, which was marijuana legislation, was specifically for this, is allowed here in a highway business. So adult shops are not, it's not apples and apples. It's apples and oranges, because there's no special zoning legislation that came out that was promoting the ability to get adult shops. That just didn't happen, right? So I don't even know, I'd have to go back to the town code. I don't know if we allow adult shops. If we did, it would probably be like many other places, and there's been a lot of legal action on this in industrial areas. But that's completely separate, and although it feels maybe the same, it's totally separate than when we're dealing with what you're dealing with right now.
So we need to work to overturn it.
So this all, it was all initiated by New York State,
No,
this whole
it was-
thing.
no, it was initiated by New York State, and it was Jay Schneiderman and the town board that voted to opt
Opted
in,
in.
but all the incorporated villages voted against it.
That is a fact. Yep.
I'll also mention that the town board is an elected body. That means you folks vote for them, or not, vote or not vote for
Well, as it turns out, they're voted
them.
out. We'll have a new board. soon,
You'll have a
right?
new board
We'll have a
and.
new board, got their ear.
Zoom?
Go to Zoom.
Yes, please, yeah.
My name is Frances Ventura, and I did not come here for the meeting tonight for this particular issue. I came for something else, and to be honest, I don't live in Bridgehampton. I live in East Quogue, and as of right, they have a right to open up their dispensary. I'm listening to the board, and you're saying that this is just a forum tonight of landscaping and setbacks and, what can be there. I feel, as an outsider of Bridgehampton, when I drive to Bridgehampton, I would rather see a different name. I would rather see, you know, something that doesn't say Bud Hampton, because now that is the gateway to, you know,
To Bridgehampton.
to
Yeah.
Bridgehampton. So, as an outsider looking in for everyone's frustrations, I would propose to maybe change the name, put more landscaping, make it look historical, because it is a historical town. So the store is going in. We know that. But if the owners.
We don't know that yet.
Well, the owners could work with the town, and I say that, when I say the town, I don't just mean the board, I mean the residents, to make it look historical, inviting, and maybe change the name. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have to say. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Okay, we're gonna go to the Zoom now. People have been waiting. Can you, let the first person in on Zoom? There were 5. I can't hear you. 18. Okay, let's start.
Hello?
Yes, can you boost your audio, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, and give us your name.
Hi there, my name is Susan White, and I live in Bridgehampton, and I'll keep this very short and sweet. Absolutely against having this sort of business at that particular location. It is a extremely crowded, busy, traffic intersection, and it's already pretty unregulated in terms of how people turn onto the road. Everyone has said everything else that I agree with, vehemently in opposition, and I just want to add that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have the next person, please. Yes, welcome. Please give us your name.
Hi, my name is Loretta Goldberg. I am a resident of Bridgehampton for 30 years, and I live within walking distance of the Carvel store. I apologize for the mess behind me, but we just moved here full-time recently, and so I'm very interested in what's going on here. I came to this meeting because I was led to believe that the purpose would be a lot more expansive than what I'm hearing. But I would say to everybody that this is a Carvel now. This is not a done deal. We have a new town executive coming in, and we also, besides being able to write to our town board and to our governor, there are extra legal means of dealing with this, and I don't mean illegal means, I mean extra legal. I used to live part-time in Fort Washington, and MedMen wanted to open a medical dispensary, and they eventually did not, because they saw that the opposition was going to be so severe that it wasn't worth the PR debacle for them. So I would say, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, that's why I didn't come in, but I'm a cancer survivor. I'm in favor of having legalized marijuana because I have found that, with all due respect to the doctor who spoke, that marijuana offers better options for people under treatment than a lot of the pharmaceutical options that are out there. So I don't have a problem with the marijuana store. I don't think it's any different than a liquor store or a bar. And it has the medicinal value on top of it. I do object to this one, though, because people have talked about the location. I think any town, like any person, wants to put its best foot forward. The second problem is this tax issue. This is a new program. Any kind of new program has risks to it. So if we're going to assume the risks or be forced to assume those risks, it's outrageous that we wouldn't be able to share in the benefits. Everyone has talked about the social justice issues involved in this and why certain people are being given the licenses. I'll submit that the people who live here are entitled to certain social justice too. And we don't need to have this store if we're not going to reap the benefits. The third is we need to see a business plan, because right now, to put it mildly, the New York program is a work in progress. I've been to stores in California and in Colorado, which are heavily regulated. You go in there and they sell marijuana in 5 milligram doses. You go into the Shinnecock stores and to a certain store in Bridgehampton that no one seems to know about, and they are selling items 25 milligrams, 30 milligrams, and upwards. And why should we care about this? Because the difference is it grandmothers like me who are coming in to buy 5 milligrams of pot so I can sleep at night? Or is it somebody who's coming in there to get wasted and then driving around on Montauk Highway? So, you want to talk about a marijuana store, fine, but not this one in this place until all of these issues have been worked out. And I'm happy to work with anybody who wants to make the Connors' life impossible if this is the only thing they can think of, this store. They can have other stores in this development. Make one of them the marijuana store. Let's wait a year for the marijuana store and leave our Carvel alone. And by the way, not for nothing, if I was general counsel to Carvel, I'd sue you for using that iconic structure that is associated with Carvel as a pot store. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Kathy Conway. I live in Bridgehampton and I'm opposed to Budhampton because years ago you guys voted out a bookstore, let alone, and now they're allowing a pot store.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the next person, please? Yes, please.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes?
I'm Nancy Humphrey Vertes. I know most of the speakers and some of the panelists. I've heard two words at the beginning of the presentation, horrible and unbecoming. I love words, my friends know that, and both words describe this project, horrible and unbecoming, simply unbecoming. It does not belong here. It's as simple as that. We don't need the weed shop, and we don't want the weed shop. Of course, in total control of what's going on here. I do think the DUI problems are real. I haven't done a study, as one of the prior speakers did. I'm sure there's some very good studies on the DUI problems of weed shops, but I didn't have time to do one. But there's something else going on here, which I think Pamela Harwood was getting at. Furthermore, we do not want any commerce on the common property opposite the mall. We do not want vis-a-vis malls in Bridgehampton, especially since the existing mall is underused. Kmart has almost no merchandise. I haven't been in there recently, but the last time I was in there, they had almost no merchandise and no shoppers. So the existing mall is underused. But I'd like to finish my remarks on a more positive tone. The town, it is awkward and unbecoming to be a mere hamlet in the town of Southampton. We all know what problems that creates for us. But the town has actually been very good to us recently. After Anna Pump's accident, I drafted a pedestrian safety plan, and the town went to bat for me and for Julie Burmeister and Fred Coleman. And Fred Thiel got $200,000 from the legislature for the new lighting. And you have to admit that that Main Street now is much safer than it used to be. The town helped us with that. The town also helped us finish the renovation of the Nathaniel Rogers House. It is totally magnificent and considered to be the best federal architecture on Long Island. It's beautiful to look at. We are working on creating programs so that it will be open to the public and more responsive. But the mere exterior aspect of it should warm your hearts as you drive by. And the Main Street designation as an historic district is amazing. Ed Wesanowski worked very hard on it, so did two members of the Bridgehampton Civic Association, Julie Burmeister and Tom Watson. I don't know if Tom is here. It was a great event, and we are very grateful for it. So, also the new bookstore in the Common is very nice. The town had nothing to do with that, but it's also very nice. So why do we have to deal with this horrible suggestion that we have a weed shop on property which is so contested? This property has been contested now since I was chair of the Bridgehampton Civic Association in 2011. It's still contested. In those days, in the early days, it was considered to be a PDD, and then that was thrown out. But it's still there in the works, and it may be behind this application for a weed shop. So there is much more here than meets the eye. Every time the Connors come to the public forum, there's a problem. So this is our problem tonight. I would say that we don't want a weed shop. We don't need one. And it's totally inconsistent with the style of the village. The reason we live here is because we love the style of the village. So I'll go back to those two words that I started with. Horrible and unbecoming. That is what this weed shop is.
Thank you, Nancy. May we have the next speaker, please? Yes, can we have your name, please?
Hi, I'm Meredith Berkowitz, and I'm the secretary of the Bridgehampton Civic Association. I'm here to express my opposition as well. I too thought it was unjust when I first saw the article. I'm very disappointed that our town council did not follow the lead of the incorporated villages and chose instead to not act in the best interest of all of its hamlets and failed so miserably to protect the unincorporated hamlets. This is the exact result of that. It seems that we do not control our own land use and we are at the mercy of the town, we often seem to be stuck with the short end of the stick. Carvel is beloved by all, especially children. It has been an enormous part of many of our families' lives. To propose to replace it with a cannabis dispensary, a non-medical one, seems almost a mockery. Plus, making it a pot shop, the first impression, and gateway to our hamlet does not seem the impression we want to leave our visitors, particularly coming on the heels of what was a huge victory for preservation, the Main Street Historic District. It seems like we are now taking several steps backwards. Thank you, Jay, and the Town Council. Finally, I want to say I'm not against marijuana. I actually supported its legalization, and I appreciate the health benefits. I came and supported OMO when others when legislation was first proposed. That said, this application is for a non-medical dispensary, and allowing one in this particular location is not the right decision for our community. I wish the town had not forced the dispensaries into the highway office zoning of the unincorporated hamlets. A better option would have been to have allowed the farms and farmers growing it to sell it directly, throwing support behind our agricultural industry. A couple of thoughts do come to mind though. Even if you do not have the right to say no, you can impose, and I've seen you do it, conditions that could make this less palatable to the applicant, including requiring it to be completely landscaped and hidden from the highway. I'll also address the elephant in the room. I feel like this application was submitted in an effort to gain leverage in the negotiations for the larger development next door. And shame on you, Greg Connor. It is absolutely despicable, and I don't know how you sleep at night knowing you're deeply hurting your community like this. I hope whatever money you're making, it's worth selling your community out. And as another community member who spoke tonight said, do not complain when the wrath of the community comes back around in vehement opposition to anything else that you want to do in this community. It seems to me that a community lawsuit against the town and its council members that the law as adopted and put into practice by the town of Southampton unfairly places the burden solely on the unincorporated hamlets without any of the benefits may be unconstitutional in its adoption. I also think that this application, as planning board members have mentioned, is going to take some time. And perhaps we need to lobby and propose legislation that would change the zoning of this particular parcel and perhaps maybe even the parcel adjoining that would thwart Mr. Connor's plans. The other option, it also seems, is for us to incorporate. And based on the community presence here, it seems like this would be a possibility. This dispensary may prove to be the impetus for us to take back control of our own land use. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Yes, can we have your name, please?
Oh, hi, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you could see me.
Your name,
I
please?
won't repeat any of the can you hear me okay?
Can you give us your name, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, my name is Gasper Tringale, lived in Bridgehampton for about 25 years. And I like to think that I'm somewhat aware of what's going on with the town and the village. And I have to say that I had no inkling until very recently that this was even even being proposed. And what I'm gathering here tonight is that basically Schneiderman and a few of his friends on the town board, I guess, have put this thing, have approved this thing. And I think they have had no meaningful input from the residents of the Bridgehampton Village, not to mention other people in and around the town on this question. This is just boom. Now you want to talk about landscaping. It's like, it's a done deal. And I want to just say plainly, it's been said already, and I know what I'm saying is going to be repetitious, but I want everybody who's watching this and hearing it tonight to be clear about the fact that this is not a done deal. Other projects have been proposed for this site that have been rejected, and this can also be rejected. The lady who just spoke before me was more eloquent than I could be on the subject. I just leave it at that. But I think it's negligent of the town not to have more input from the village residents. I don't know what Schneiderman and that board, I don't know what that process was all about, But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I'm blindsided by it. I think it's a low and vulgar concept of what to do with that property. I understand that something will happen there, but you may as well put a strip club if it's about tax revenue. There are other issues obviously at stake here, and the notion that a 500-foot technical requirement is going to protect students at the high school from using this pot dispensary, particularly, I'm just hearing now, it's not a medical dispensary, they're just selling pot. Does anybody here feel that it's too hard to get pot, that we should put that in there to make it easier for people? Is that the hardship that we're addressing? So, I mean, I think the whole thing stinks. And the most useful thing that this panel can do tonight is help instruct us, the people who are watching, who are civilians, and you know, not as savvy as they might be about the process, to instruct us, and as it has sort of been coming out in bits and drips and pieces here, but just help us understand what we can do to stop this process where it is now, and have a second look at it, so that it can be properly reviewed with, you know, input from the village residents. I think that's just basic common sense and decency. Otherwise, it amounts to an abuse of the village by the town of Southampton. I don't want to say any more than that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
May we have the next speaker, please? Okay, now Greg Connor. That's it. You're not going to speak. Carl, do you want to speak? Carl Benincasa?
I think it's clear the board's limitations, and we've made our position as respect to how it meets the requirements. But again, tonight was about hearing the concerns of the public, and we've heard them loud and clear. So I don't think there's anything much to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the public for coming and expressing guidance. Pamela Harbour will tell you what to do, right? Yeah. So you can follow that. You can also send letters to us, address them to the town board and to the planning board. And you do have a new town board coming in, so we'll see where this goes. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Adjourn, please.
Oh, you do 30-day written on this one.
30-day written comment.
Why don't we leave it open?
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, I would leave it
But
open.
then you gotta give me an idea.
You gotta make
January.
some resolution.
The second,
We have 5 hearings
on the second one? What
Yeah.
about the first one, January? Same thing. So February,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, you could
Leave
adjourn it.
Adjourn it till February 8th? Yeah? Okay, so we're adjourning the hearing till February 8th, folks.
Did everybody hear that?
No,
The
they didn't
meeting,
hear.
this is adjourned until February 8th.
About the same subject?
Yes. Okay, motion to adjourn by
Motion.
Dennis, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned.